Hello, everybody. So this is the Q&A answers. If you follow my Instagram, then you saw me post back on the 7th of March that we are going to be doing a Q&A session. So I'm going to be answering the questions that you guys sent me. I've tried to record this intro like 4 or 5 times because I don't want to come off as rude, but some of you did ask me some personal questions, and by that I mean like you said, are so and so and I going to get back together? What is going on between my connection with so and so? I'm not going to be answering those types of questions. If you want an answer to those, you can go intuitively within yourself, read your own tarot, which I never really recommend, or you can purchase a reading from myself or another reader, okay? And again, like, I'm not trying to sound like a bitch. I say that with a lot of love. It's just, this is more for like spiritual knowledge and me to share my spiritual wisdom. The next thing I'm going to mention is, as I posted, like when I made the Q&A itself, I said I would answer questions about my life if I felt comfortable doing so. So with all that being said, we're going to dive right into the answers to the questions. And we're going to start with the very first one. A good way to ground yourself. So there are multiple different ways that you can ground your energy. Of course, traditional meditation is a really good starting point. If 111 on the timer, especially if you can bring yourself to do a traditional meditation, I would recommend doing one of those at least once a week. Okay. But a really quick and easy way to ground your energy. This is for those of you that live in places that you can do this at this time of year. Walking barefoot in the grass or in earth, like whether it's dirt, whether it's sand, whether it's grass, that's going to be a really good way for you to connect your energy back to earth, if you will. And those of you that can't do that at this time of year, like myself, the traditional meditation is honestly probably one of my best methods. Sorry. You can also do there's different ritual practices you can do to ground your energy. Listening to root chakra frequencies is going to help to ground your energy. What else could I recommend? Like, obviously, anytime you connect with nature, you're grounding yourself back to Mother Earth. So anytime you connect with nature is going to ground your energy. But like, honestly, the majority of you should be doing a traditional meditation. Okay. The next question, I had to like screenshot this because they responded with like a photo. I also just realized I haven't read off the names, but her story, her diaries is this person's question. If I wanted to do a cutting cord ritual, would that just affect this life, or would it affect my next one as well? Thank you for all that you do, or all of the work you do. You always find me when I need you most. Blessings. Well, I'm glad that you find me when you need it. Personally, I think that's based off of your own beliefs. So like me personally, I would think that would only affect this lifetime unless you state in the intentions that you want it to affect each lifetime moving forward. I think that's really going to determine like what intentions you're setting when you're going into that cord cutting ritual, as well as like your own belief system, if that makes sense. But like, in my personal opinion, no, I don't think that would affect another lifetime. But I do feel really called to ask you, why would it matter? Like, if you're doing a cord cutting in this lifetime, don't you think you would probably want to do one with this person in the next lifetime as well? Like, there's something to ponder there, is what I'm hearing. Okay, so the next question is Ella R. Russ. When you first spiritually awakened, how long did it take for you to learn about your past life? I honestly am still learning about past lives. I think that's one of the ones that like you're constantly gaining knowledge on, especially if you're an older soul, because you've lived multiple different lifetimes, right? So you're going to gain more wisdom throughout your journey. And like, past lives are honestly, I would say I didn't really start getting information about my past lives until I want to say like year 3 of my spiritual awakening. And I think that has a lot to do with like your first few years of your awakening and your ascension. You're more focused on like your growth. You're more focused on your healing. You're looking at your shadows and your trauma. So like, I kind of, again, this is all my personal opinion. I personally believe that like your past lives aren't as dominantly important as the rest of what you're trying to go through, unless some of the trauma that you're releasing ties in, or the shadow ties into a past life. Because that did happen during the first 3 years. I would see certain things from past lives. Specifically when I was like releasing a certain connection with a person, I would see the past life we shared together. One of the things that I've always kind of wanted to do is a past life regression. I think they're really interesting, really intriguing, but I personally think it's just like a matter of how awoken you are and how much shit you've already processed. Sometimes people don't even really receive knowledge about their past lives. Like some people don't really gain that information. Other times it comes through in tarot readings. Sometimes it comes through in meditations. It really depends on you as a person and how open you are to receiving that information. Because some people don't also believe in past lives, right? So that's another one that it kind of goes with like your own beliefs and what you feel and see. Okay. Um, okay. The next question was fake_stupid_smile, and you asked, what is the best way you've seen a cord cutting done? It didn't work because he's your DM. Um, the best method, I honestly, a nana knife is really beneficial, like a spiritual knife that'll like cut the cord from your womb space. That's especially if you've been intimate with this person. Um, if the what I am gonna say is if the cord cutting you didn't work, your intentions were not strong enough. Okay, so there could either be a part of your shadow that's still attached to this person and struggling to release them, or B, there's something that you're not quite acknowledging when it comes to the need to let this connection go. Okay, there's a need for you to like reevaluate is kind of what I'm sensing with this energy. And like at the end of the day, it's all about intention. Okay, so when you go into that cord cutting, you need to have very firm intentions if that's what you're doing. There could be a part of you that just didn't have a firm enough intention base. I honestly feel like you should try again the method that you used, because usually your spiritual team will guide you to whatever's going to work best for you. The one that I've seen to work the best is the one that you take the black candle, the white candle, the twine, and you wrap it around, and then you do the intentions or whatever. You can carve the names into each candle. You can dress them if you choose to, but it's up to you and what your intuition tells you. But that is the one that I've seen to work the strongest. But again, like it all boils down. I tell you guys this a lot. Like magic all boils down to your intentions and how strong they are when you go into it, and how grounded you are when you first go into your ritual practice. Okay. Fluttershy_441 asked, what are some important tips for becoming a tarot reader? Knowledge is power. That's like the biggest tip I have for you. So the more knowledge you have pertaining to the tarot is going to help you in the long run. But you also, like the other really big factor for me, I got to remind people a lot, like tarot's intuitive. So just because like a card means one thing doesn't necessarily mean the reader that's reading those cards is going to interpret it in that way. Okay, so like the example I feel called to give is there was a video I did on TikTok recently where the Emperor came out, but for me it intuitively felt like the Hierophant. Like I literally looked at it and thought it was the Hierophant, and someone commented and said that's actually the Emperor, and I was reading off of the like basic, not reading, but like, you know what I'm saying? I was basing what I was feeling off of the Hierophant's energy, but that's because whoever I was tapping into had very strong traditional energy. Okay. So like tarot is all intuitive. It's important to have the knowledge of the information, of course. Like I said in the beginning, like knowledge is power in the long run. And it's really important to have that knowledge in the back of your mind. But at the end of the day, what matters most is what you're feeling and what you're intuitively seeing. Okay. That's why a lot of authentic readers you will see will take a tarot card. Like, for example, I'm just going to take what's at the bottom of this deck here, which happens to be the Four of Cups. So some of y'all are a little bit bored and isolated. So like, a real tarot reader is going to take this imagery and they're going to look into detail at the image on the card. So like, for example, the things that are calling me in already are like how she's looking really melancholy, how she looks really detached, the fact that something's about to be handed to her, but she's too focused on other things. Like there's an emphasis on paying attention to what you're intuitively feeling and seeing on the card's imagery instead of focusing so much on the descriptions and what the cards mean themselves. As I said, it's important to have that knowledge, don't get me wrong, because like ultimately you need the knowledge in order to be able to properly read the cards. But at the end of the day, what matters the most is what you feel when you're reading them. Okay. I hope that like gives a little bit of help in that sense. Also, remember, it takes time to learn it. Like tarot's a big thing, man. Like there's still shit that I don't remember. Okay, like I still end up looking up certain meanings from time to time, and I've been reading now for over 4 years. Like it's one of those things that there's so much information that you're almost overwhelmed with the amount of information. So like, don't beat yourself up if you don't remember it all. All right. So the next person is _Mackenzie Oberg _ I'm sorry if I pronounce any of your guys' usernames incorrectly. Do you have your own personal tarot reader, or do you prefer to read yourself? So it's interesting that this question got asked, because I used to go, if I felt called to, I would go to a reading for from the Fire Witch Tarot. She's on TikTok as well as Etsy is where her shop is. She's like one of the only few readers I really trust when it comes to tarot readings on my own energy. But personally, I don't really get a lot of readings anymore. And I think that's partly because like I just know the knowledge is within me. And if this is the other weird thing, and it might seem a little bit conceited, but like if spirit really wants me to know something, they're gonna guide me to one of my own tarot readings on TikTok or YouTube or Patreon. So it's like I guess it's kind of a perk. And no, I don't actually read on myself. I actually don't recommend it. The only time I do a reading on myself is if Aphrodite or one of my gods or patrons calls me to do it, but it's very seldom because I personally think it's too hard to read on your own energy. I personally think you're always going to put your own ego and your own bias into it. With that being said, though, when you're in the beginning of your journey and you're learning how to read tarot, that's very different because you need to read on yourself in order to gain the knowledge and the wisdom you need in order to grow and evolve to be able to read on other people. Like practice makes perfect, you know what I mean? So like when I first started reading tarot, I read way too much on myself, which ultimately is divination abuse, and I learned that the hard way, so I hope y'all don't. But at the end of the day, if I didn't do all those readings on myself in the beginning, I wouldn't be where I am right now with the knowledge that I have for tarot. So like it's kind of a catch-22 in a way because you have to in the beginning, but once you hit a certain stage, I think like once you hit a certain stage with the tarot, you have to take a step back and recognize that like one, it can be addictive. Two, you can fall into a chasing pattern. And three, almost always you're putting your bias into it. Because if I had a book where I would write down those readings that I was doing on myself and I looked back at them after I had been reading at that point for maybe like 2 or 3 years for clients, and I was like, holy shit, like each and every single one you could see my ego and my bias in it. Because when you're reading on yourself, it's really hard to check that. Okay, so like if you do feel called to get a reading, I would always recommend going to somebody else to do it for you, but someone that you trust, like a very trusted advisor. That's why the Fire Witch Tarot happens to be like one of the only readers I trust. And I only, like I've told you guys openly quite a bit, like I don't trust a lot of people in my energy. So for me, in order to allow you access to my energy, you have to be on a certain frequency. And I find like she's one of the few readers that is very authentic. And she's always bang on. So there's that too. Outside of myself, because like I said, sometimes they will pull me to my own readings because they know I'm going to listen to me, right? Like I don't like being called out by myself, but it's what it is. It's what it is. Anyway, I'm definitely not going to pronounce this person's name right. It looks like Saladizzy. I apologize. Sala. I also should have my glasses on. Daizy. How should I start communicating with my ancestors? You literally just start talking to them. It's just that simple. Like it really and truly, baby, it's that simple. If you feel called to, I am seeing like it might be beneficial for you in the beginning to like light a candle. I recommend that for anything. Like if you're doing a ritual, if you're doing a spell, which is pretty much the same thing, if you're reading your tarot cards, if you want to connect and do a prayer with your spiritual guides, if you want to connect with your ancestors, etc., I always recommend lighting a candle to actually protect your space, okay? Because it's gonna, I don't know I can't remember who told me this, but there was a spiritual person that I used to be in connection with who told me that lighting a candle at the beginning of your session is going to help remove any negative energies and like block it from coming forward. And that includes like entities and things like that. 1313 when I just said that, which I don't know if any of you have ever heard me mention this before, but whenever I see double numbers like that, it's confirmation of something I had just said. So the next person, we're going to the next screenshot. Please hold. Katie Bone 92. What do you love most about being a tarot reader? I love watching my clients grow. So I have certain clients that have like 2 or 3 clients, maybe 5, that have been with me from the very beginning. So like when I first started reading tarot, and it's been incredible to watch their energy do a complete 180 from the energy that they came to me in to the energy that they're in now. Like what I do for a living is incredibly rewarding, and I love every second of it. I of course have my moments where I want to throw in the towel. I of course have my moments where I question what I'm doing, but I think that's a natural process of life. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change any of it. Like it's incredibly rewarding to watch each and every one of you evolve into the person that you're fated to be. And like that's even outside of my personal clients. Like I've seen some of my collective, because some of my collective has been with me from the beginning, and I can tell just by their comments and how they're reacting to certain videos and how they're responding to like you know how they're responding to my content. Like I can tell that they've changed. I can tell that they've grown and evolved. And like Some of you have even gone as far as like messaging me to tell me how much my impact has helped you guys to become the people that you wanted to be all along. And like at the end of the day, the energy is always within each and every one of you. I'm just giving you the little push to remind you that it's there. So honestly, my favorite thing about being a reader is how rewarding it is and how much it fills my heart with like so much love to see each and every one of you become your best versions of yourself. Plus, I can't deny that like you guys helped me just as much as I help you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've said this before, if you guys go look back on my page and look at my older content, I was a different person when I first started my readings. I was a totally different person when I first started posting on social media because I didn't truly love myself back then. And like, there's a part of my collective that helped me to discover myself just as much as I've helped you guys discover you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, like, if you don't believe me, go look. Like, you can see it. Even like 6 months ago or 8 months ago, there was a part of me that like truly didn't have the confidence that I have right now. I was very much like a fake it till you make it type of person. But each and every one of you helped me to gain that confidence in a way that like I don't even really think you guys understand. Like, I'm incredibly grateful for each one of you for that factor. Which is something I wish I could express more deeply, but it's kind of 555. It's kind of hard. Anyway, next person, Jessica James, 10. How can I quick and easy protect myself while doing tarot besides incense? I literally just answered this question. That's funny. Just light a candle. Cleanse your space and light a candle. And then like when you light the candle, set the intention to keep your space protected while you're doing the reading, etc. All right. Maleficent, your opinion on future spouse readings and maybe doing them on yourself. Well, I kind of think I answered this one as well because somebody asked about like my own personal reader, etc. I personally think it's really hard to read on yourself. I personally think each and every time you're going to bring your bias into it. So like, especially when it comes to like a future spouse reading. So like, for example, if you still have a little bit of an attachment to an ex or a situationship or something, like if your heart's still being pulled in a direction of another person, you're automatically going to try to fit that person into whatever the cards are telling you, like without fail, myself included. This is why I don't read on my own energy very often, because your bias is always going to get in the way. And like 9 times out of 10, I say this with love, you're not usually right about the person that you think is coming forward. And like, I'm sure that's been proven to each one of you in the long run, like in the longer run. So no, I don't totally agree with doing it yourself. I don't disagree with getting future spouse readings done because like ultimately do what you want with that. But like when you're doing it for you, you're going to put the wrong person in that position almost every single time. Whereas when it's being done for you, the proper reader shouldn't be putting a bias into the reading whatsoever. So there's not going to be that same energy. You might end up putting the wrong person in that position in the beginning, but it's going to be shown to you a lot faster. Does that make sense? I don't know how else to explain that. Who is your favorite music artist of all time? One that you'll always have love for? Mac Miller. Like, point blank, period. Like, him and Bryson Tiller are my top 2, but Mac Miller forever will own my heart. I bawled when he died. Like, bawled my face off. Any tips on giving up the devil's lettuce is what we're gonna call it. Yeah, actually. So I've been pretty open about having a devil's lettuce addiction in the past. The best way for me to quit was actually to kind of like slowly deteriorate. I don't know why I worded it like that. Okay, that's a little dark, but basically what I mean by that is I like gradually weaned off of it. So, and like I used to be on some pretty heavy antidepressants, and like when I came off of those, I was told I had to wean off of them. So I feel like because I did that with the narcotic, it kind of just made sense for me to do it with the weed. And so far it's been the only thing to stick. Okay, so like what I did was and like honestly my time span I don't really remember, so I apologize for that, but like I just kind of listened to my body. I'm pretty good at listening to what my body needs and when it wants. So I started by my normal dosage. Like I smoked a lot, okay, like a lot in a day. So I decided to begin with only smoking at a certain time of day. So like I started with, I think it was 3 p.m. So I was like, okay, no smoking from the second I wake up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then whatever. And then after a couple weeks of that, or maybe even a couple months of that, I gradually went down to 5 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock, and then so on and so forth until it got to a point where I wasn't smoking at all at night. I was drinking a CBD tea because once I hit a certain time of day, I decided that I wasn't going to be smoking. I just substituted it with, because like at that point it was only like a joint, right? So take that in mind, right? So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to be smoking way more, but come 8 o'clock at night, you're likely only to roll yourself a joint and get ready to go to bed. So once I hit like 9 or 10 o'clock, I substituted the joint for CBD instead, and it was a tea version, and now I don't even need that. So honestly, weaning off of it is probably the best thing you can do, and that's the same for like really any addiction. Excuse me, is weaning yourself off, because you also don't want to shock your system, right? Like, I'm not going to deny that, like, the other times when I had quit cold turkey, I had major withdrawal, like major withdrawal from it. And I did experience some withdrawal when I weaned off, but it was not nearly the same as it was when I quit cold turkey. And every time I quit cold turkey, I gravitated right back to it. I'm not going to deny that every once in a blue moon I do have a craving, but like at the end of the day, a craving's a craving and it always passes. I hope that helps, but like that's my best advice, is to wean yourself off of it. All right, so the next person is JEHT97. What made you decide doing collective readings? I really wish I had the answer to that. I don't remember. I was like in the throngs of the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I lived on my own at the time, so like, and looking back on it, I realized I was in a little bit of like a delulu state, a little bit of a spiritual psychosis, but I don't know, something in me one day was just like, you need to start posting on TikTok. And then I was going through like a transitional period in my life where I was moving out of, because I first started posting when I was still living on my own, and then some stuff happened with my old apartment complex where like the building got sold and it got purchased by a new couple, etc., like a whole nine. And they decided to evict everybody so that they could redo the units. I saw it coming, so I moved out before it happened. And I moved back here, which just made more sense to save money, etc. And once I moved back in here, I started feeling pushed to post more and more. So at that point, I had only really posted like a little tiny bit when I was living on my own. And then I don't know, something about moving back into my childhood bedroom when I started really healing my inner teenager and shit was just like, you need to post more content. So I just started to do it. I just said frack it. There was a lot of moments where I wanted to throw in the towel, because like I've been pretty open about how bullied I was as a young woman. So there were moments where I would like not want to be seen on the internet, and like I got really like shy and like weird about like posting my content and things like that. And one of my best friends at the time, he just kind of looked at me and was just like, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, if this is something you're passionate about and you enjoy it, like, go for it. And he was 100% right. Like, I'm forever grateful for him for, like, pushing me to, like, do what I'm doing now, because I would not be where I am if it weren't for him giving me that little kick in the butt. But like, yeah, I don't know, there was a lot of moments, and like, if you look back on my page, you can see that like I did not post nearly as often as I do now, and that's because I was afraid. Like, I was really afraid. One, I was afraid of being seen. Two, I was afraid of being bullied. And like, three, I have some like darkness in my past, and I was afraid that that was going to affect my present. And then the more I grew, the more I evolved, and like him supporting me at that time really helped me to recognize that like, even though I do have a darker past, that doesn't necessarily mean my present needs to be dark. You know what I mean? Like, and those who fully and truly support and respect me are going to understand that I wasn't the same person when I did those stupid things that I am now. You know what I mean? So like, I think the other thing was I never wanted to be exposed for like who I used to be. I don't know. There was just a lot of fear. Like, I had a lot of fear about posting content. And then, I don't know, I just stopped caring, because at the end of the day, this is my life, and I'm going to post what I want on my social media. And if people don't like that, then forget them, you know? It was a process, okay? It was a process. And it was scary, but I'm really glad that I did it. So, because like I said, like, y'all helped me grow just as much as I've helped you grow. I would not be where I am right now if it weren't for my collective. All right, so the next question, Paula Honey, I think that says, do you remember the moment when you realized you were connecting with a spirit or guide? Not really. I think part of the problem is I've always kind of had this ability, but I shied away from it. Like, I don't know. There was a part of me when I was younger where I really lived into the societal aspect of like spirituality and witchcraft and shit wasn't real. And that it doesn't help that I come from a really small place, like a really small place where a lot of people live in their egos, and no shade towards those people. Just a lot of people where I'm from are very judgmental when it comes to this kind of stuff. It was a very religious kind of, not even religious, but just like small town shit. You know what I mean? So there was a part of me that kind of like shied away from that, especially because like growing up, my mom's really into witchcraft, and people would like make fun of me when I was little because of that. They would be like, "Oh, well, let's go to the witch's house," and like just, you know, just childhood stuff, like just kids being kids, if you will. And it kind of made me as an adult be like, "No, I'm good. Like I don't want to be seen as that person, etc." I cared way too much what people thought about me in my early 20s, and I don't know, it just got to a point where I just stopped giving a shit. And then I think it was like not long after my one of my good friends that I have on my merch, his pictures on my merch, and like his link is in my link tree for his music and stuff. He committed suicide. And I think that's when things really started to shift for me. That's when I started to really wake up to spirituality and like who I was. And I don't know, my life did like a 180 when that happened, which is really normal. Like grief does some crazy things, but that's when I first, like, that was the first time I'd ever even gone to a medium. And, like, I'm not gonna say that I wasn't, like, spiritual, because I've always been spiritual, but, like, not nearly to the degree that I am now. I was much more in the dark than I ever was before he died. And then when he died, I was trying to make sense of it all and, like, trying to connect with him. And I think that's probably when I first started connecting more to spirits as a whole. But I didn't really start, like, talking to them and, like, communicating with them until, like, 2019, maybe 2019 is when I first started, like I had my first tarot reading ever. And then I went through a really bad breakup in, I think it was 2020, because like the pandemic hit. It was like right when everything shut down, like the whole world shut down. I went through a pretty rough breakup, and by rough breakup I mean like my heart was just broken. And that's when I was trying to, again, like the grief from that mixed in with the grief of not really fully dealing with my friend's death, I started to like just gravitate towards what I felt called to gravitate towards. And that's kind of when things really changed for me. And then I moved into my own place. And this was at this point, I used to just jump from relationship to relationship when I was younger. So at this point, this was probably the first time in my life I was ever really and truly alone. And then I started connecting more with my spiritual side at that point. Honestly, it's interesting to learn about different people's journeys, and like doing what I do for a living, I've been able to like connect with different people and find out what woke them up spiritually and what woke, like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of cool. It's like each and every person, we all get to the same place, but something different might wake each one of us up. For me, it was grief, like, and it usually is grief for most people, but I've even heard some stories where it's mostly trauma. But you always try to make sense of the why it's happening, right? And that's what you gravitate towards. So I think that's when, like, I've always, like, back before all of that, I used to pray every night. Like when I would go to bed, it was just a normal occurrence for me. Like it wasn't, especially after my friend died, it got even more intense. And then when the breakup happened, I don't know, I just kind of said, forget it. I'm miserable in the life that I'm in currently because I'm not being my authentic self, so I might as well just embrace my spirituality and like be the weird girl that talks to spirits and shit. It took a while though, like my ego was pretty big, y'all. The next person, Andrea. How long did it take you on your spiritual journey to fully open your third eye? I don't even think my third eye is fully open, so it's still ongoing. I think that's one of those things that like each ascension, you're gonna open your chakras a little bit deeper. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that, and the other aspect is like every person's different. So like, I don't know, this is, again, remember, these are my beliefs, but I personally, because we're never done healing, I personally believe we're never done evolving. I believe we're never done growing. We're never done seeing. So like, each and every level of ascension that I go through, each and every time I level up, I feel like my third eye and all the rest of my chakras open up a little bit more. I hope that kind of covers the answer to that question, because like I personally don't think I have even untapped half of my potential at this point. And I know that sounds crazy, but like for example, I know that I can connect with spirits on a deeper level. Like I know that I could be a medium if I really wanted to be, but there's a part of me that's been too terrified of that I haven't fully embraced it. And part of that has to do with my third eye. Like I have seen spirits when I've been under some, let's call them hallucinogens, and like because I have seen them, I know that I have that potential within me, but there's a part of me that's always been terrified of connecting to that side. So I feel like it really depends on where your ego is and what level of ascension you're going through. I think you're going to unlock new things each and every time. Hey, gorgeous, how can I protect my energy from energy vampires? That's a easy peasy. Just start wrapping yourself in certain colors, calling upon certain your ancestors, angels, etc., Archangel Michael, and you can wear like certain crystals that are going to protect you from certain energies, if you will. Like, I think, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that garnet, like the red garnet, I don't have one handy, but I'm pretty sure that's a really good protection of energy vampires. And I just started reading a book that says carnelian will also protect you from energy vampires. So crystals like that will help protect you. Like I said, wrapping yourself in certain colors are going to protect you. Not engaging with them is the best method, but like obviously sometimes we have to if they're co-workers, family members, etc. So those would be my best tips for you. Selenite's a good one too, because it's constantly cleansing. But when you wake up in the morning, just start setting the intention that your energy is going to be protected from energy vampires. Florida water is also really helpful because it'll cleanse your aura after you've engaged with them. So every time you come home, you should spray yourself or wipe yourself down with some Florida water. But yeah, any tips on recovering from addictions or being disciplined to get clean? You get clean when you're ready. Okay, like point blank period. You can't force yourself. You can't make it happen any faster than you want to. And like that's the struggle with addictions that I wish was talked about more frequently, because like ultimately I desperately wanted to quit, but I wasn't ready to quit. You know what I mean? So I kept doing it more and more frequently, even though there was a huge part of me that was just like, why the fuck are we doing this? Like, and then I would get into this pity energy and misery with myself because I couldn't put it down, but that's because I wasn't ready. You can't force yourself if you're not there yet, okay? But one tip I have, two actually, a craving is a craving and it will pass, okay? And if it's like, for me, what was really beneficial is when I would start to have a craving surface, I would just remind myself that it was only going to be a couple minutes. It would be gone in a few minutes. It would be wiped away in like the most 20 minutes. The other aspect that was really beneficial is when you start having cravings, substitute it. Do something different. So like, for example, if you start having a craving, and I'm just going to use the devil's lettuce as a reference. If you start having a craving to have a hoot, just go for a walk or read a book or color or create art, or like the best way in cognitive therapy that they'll tell you to stop a bad habit is to replace it with a good one. So that's my best advice, is start replacing those moments of cravings with a positive. Okay? I hope that helps. Also, remember that like you're human. Like another big problem when it comes to like releasing addictions and trying to recover is like we tend to beat ourselves up a lot for the addictions, and then we end up in this like downward spiral where we're judging ourselves far harsher than we should be. Each and every person makes mistakes in life. I honestly have never met a single person who hasn't had at least one addiction they've had to overcome. Okay? So that is a very, very important part, is not to beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself or feel so guilty for the choices that you've made, because literally everyone makes mistakes. What's your best advice for someone who struggles with self-worth and self-confidence? Constantly reminding yourself that like you are worthy is helpful. But self-care, like honestly, when I started to truly take care of myself in a way that I never did before, that's when I really started to recognize the truth. I also think that like sometimes we have certain connections that come into our lives to teach us certain lessons, and some of those are going to tie into your self-worth and your confidence. So the more you start to recognize the truth of the lesson in a connection, the more you're going to start to see who you are underneath of it. The other thing that really helped me was celibacy. Like point blank period. The longer I was celibate, the more I started to really see that like I held the power, because like men would literally throw themselves at me. And like that had always happened, but there was a part of me beforehand that I didn't see it because I couldn't see myself, right? So the more I started taking back my power and recognizing that I had the decisions within me to choose whether or not I wanted something, the easier it was in the long run. But I think the biggest thing is like the self-care. If I didn't start regularly doing things that made me feel better, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, I don't think I would see it the same way. Like for me, I think that's why people get addicted to going to the gym and like working on their body and things like that, because they start to see a physical difference. I'm very much like a visual person. So even though I've had so much growth internally, I needed to see physical growth as well, which is why glow ups are really important when you go through your ascensions, in my opinion, because you start to recognize yourself in a way that you never did before. But self-care, and like, again, you can do this at home too. Like a lot of it I did myself. So like I would have like a regular face mask, or I would do like a bubble bath, or just shit that made me feel good on the inside. And the more you start to make yourself feel good on the inside, the more it starts to show on the outside, and the more you start to recognize that. And then the self-worth thing, like honestly, the reason I know my worth is because of the connections that I had been in the past that didn't value me, that didn't put me first. The more I started to love myself on the physical, the more I started to see myself on the inside as well. And again, like I think certain connections come into our life for that exact reason. How do you know when the universe sent you a person? I don't think you ever really do. I know that's kind of shitty to hear, but I think like each person we cross in our life, like I just said to the last person's question, like I think each individual person we come across in this lifetime, there's either a lesson in that or a blessing, right? So if the connection's going well and like things, even if it ends and it doesn't end on like a negative kind of standpoint, then I think that was like a blessing. So like for example, the last person I dated, like seriously dated, was back in October, and he was a wonderful person. We just weren't compatible, and like at the time I couldn't quite see that, but it showed me he was like a stepping stone for me recognizing that my taste had changed, that I'm starting to date people who value me versus, you know, what I can provide for them, because it was an equal kind of connection. He went above and beyond for me. He was a very kind soul. Like, it's recognizing the difference between people that are here to teach you a hard lesson and people that are here to show you your own growth is kind of what I feel called to say with that one. Like, that's a hard question to answer. I like it because it's making me think. I think everybody in life is sent by the universe. Is kind of, I guess, the long-winded version of that. I think each individual person we come across them for a reason. It's just a matter of, like I just said, is it a blessing or is it a lesson? Or is it to show you how far you've come? Because some of them are truly stepping stones to show you how far you've come from where you were. All right, how did you connect with your feminine energy? Celibacy. I know that sounds weird, but like I'm telling you, celibacy. There was a point where I would like, I definitely was promiscuous, okay? Like, we're just point blank period. I was promiscuous, okay? I liked attention. I still like attention. I'm human, all right? What human being doesn't like attention? I'm just not as promiscuous with it anymore. So one of the things that really helped me to tap more into my feminine energy was celibacy, recognizing that I have the power. This is my body and I can do what I want with it. And doing my makeup more frequently, wearing frilly clothing, connecting more with like my girlier side. So like back in the day, like you would never have seen me in a dress or a skirt. Like it was not something I really ever chose to do. And I started doing that. So I started wearing more dresses, wearing more skirts, doing my makeup more frequently. I started doing my hair on a regular basis. I started taking better care of my hair and my skin and things like that. I stopped having sex with people who did not deserve to be actually active with me. I just like disconnected completely from that kind of lifestyle and started putting it more into me. And it like, not only did it again show me how much power I had within myself, but it showed me who I was. It showed me that I am beautiful. And a lot of the time I couldn't see that. Like I had somebody tell me one time that like modesty was their favorite thing about me, because like I truly didn't see my own beauty. And it's true. Like I still am pretty modest, but like back then I genuinely did not see what other people saw in me because I just hated myself, right? Which is something that I feel like most women struggle with, because in society nowadays we're taught that we have to look and act a certain way in order to be the standard of beauty, which in reality is bullshit. Each individual person is beautiful in their own way. Like one person's beauty is going to be different than another person's beauty because we're not all the same blueprint. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you, man, like the celibacy was the biggest in helping me connect with myself, because like, and what I mean by celibacy is you're not being intimate with partners, okay? Like, you can still be intimate with yourself, but you're not being intimate with other people. And one, that's an energy exchange. So you need to be cautious about who you're being intimate with to begin with. And two, it really helps to clear out your sacral chakra, and it helps you to heal a lot of your actual trauma. It helps you to connect more with your worthiness and recognize that you have the power, all right? And wearing, like I said, it's real simple, but wearing skirts, wearing dresses, wearing heels, doing my nails, like getting my nails done, getting my lashes done, getting my hair done, like just doing things that make you feel pretty, that make you feel feminine, that make you feel girly. Just trust yourself. Like, if your version of feminine might be different from my version of feminine. For me, it's about what I just described, like dressing up in frilly dresses and connecting more with a side of me that I don't normally connect with. But that's my best advice. And like, you can tell that you started to heal your feminine energy when like people will literally just do shit for you for no reason, like out of the blue, and you're just like, what? I've always had pretty girl privilege, but it's another level when you've connected to your feminine energy to this degree. All right, C_Bartz, what's your opinion / beliefs on twin flames? I've believed 100%, then I've doubted 100%. I don't know, 50-50. I kind of figured this question was going to come through. I don't disagree with them, but I think there's a lot of false information on the internet about it. I think a lot of the time we chase the idea versus the actual connection. Personally, I think if I was gonna really break it down, my belief is that a twin flame connection is meant to show you your other side of yourself and not in another person. Okay, so like, it's meant to bring you back to wholeness. It's meant to teach you self-love. It's meant to teach you how to grow, to evolve, to step in your true power. I don't really necessarily think it's meant to come into your life to be in union with this one person and one person only. I've never really liked the concept that like you're not whole without your twin. Like it always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Excuse me. And I feel like ultimately, like I just said, I feel like the connection as a whole is meant to teach you what self-love is. It's meant to teach you how to grow and evolve into the best version of yourself. That's what I think they are. And honestly, I think most of the time we don't even actually know who our twin flame is, or our twin flame is above and not actually on this planet. Either you've never met them, or they're in the astral, or on the odd chance you might have like had a connection with them, but like 9 times out of 10, I feel like most people from your past are from your past to teach you a lesson. But much like myself, we get attached to it and then we think that it's more than it is, but in reality, it's just a life lesson as a whole. And maybe I'm wrong. Like, I'm open to it is basically, I guess, the long-winded answer to that question. I'm open to the idea of it, but I don't really care enough. I think that I really don't. And I know that sounds kind of bitch of me to say, but like, not a question, but I just love you. Aw. Thanks. Okay, the next question was, when and how did your spiritual journey start? I think I kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but it started, and honestly, that's when I started getting real into the twin flame soulmate idea, because I couldn't understand why something was given to me and then taken away. But in reality, my attachment was the problem back then, but I couldn't see that back then, because I didn't love myself. So the more I grew, the more I evolved, and the more I recognized who I was, the more I saw the truth of what that connection was for. It was meant to teach me self-love. It was meant to teach me my worth. It was meant to show me what it was to be loved within myself. Does that make sense? Instead of trying to find love outside of myself. That's how I woke up spiritually. And there's way more to the story, but like, due to privacy reasons, I'm not going to go too in depth with it. All right. Hi, what advice do you have for readers trying to ground their energy through turbulent times? The same thing I said in the very beginning when it comes to grounding. Like, you should just incorporate it more frequently into your life. So like, if you're struggling at this time, then you need to 43, then you need to ground your energy on a more regular basis. So like going into nature, meditating, doing creative activities, anything that like gets you out of your head and into your body is a way to ground your energy. Traditional meditation is my best advice when you are experiencing turbulence in your life or stressors. Honestly, it's my best advice in any way when you want to ground yourself, but especially when you're going through something. So as I said in the beginning of this Q&A, like, I would recommend doing that once a week, but when you're going through a struggle, I would recommend doing that frequently. Like, honestly, if not every day, okay? Until the turbulence has subsided, so that you can stay in that grounded energy to overcome whatever obstacles and challenges you're facing. Because there's nothing worse than being ungrounded and going through chaos. Which studio? I don't even know what that is, bro. But you were literally, when I was talking about, like, my favorite thing as, like, a tarot reader, you were one of the people that I was gonna say, like, I'm not gonna say your name, obviously, 4444, but you were one of the collective people that I saw in my mind when I was saying, like, even the people who just follow me that aren't my clients, but they comment on all of my stuff, I can see their growth. So, I don't know, I feel really called to tell you that, like, I recognize your growth, okay? Like, you're seen, all right? There's a reason I felt the need to say that to you. But I'm just gonna, like, quick glance that. So we're gonna look up what this is. Also, like, while I'm doing this, I actually have been feeling called to watch more anime. Can some of my anime people tell me, like, a good one to start with that's gonna keep my interest? It's anime. Stop. Maybe this is what I should watch. So it's called Studio GHIBLI. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but I'm dyslexic. And when I first moved to the province that I'm in, I couldn't even read. Crazy. Yeah, I have literally no idea what this is, dude, so I honestly can't answer that question. But because I just asked what anime I should start with, you should tell me about this. Like, DM me on one of my platforms and tell me, or email me and tell me what the show's about so I can maybe potentially start with that. I don't know. Like, I've been wanting to watch anime because it's something that I love anime. Like, I've just never really gotten into it, if that makes sense. Like, Spirited Away is one of my favorite movies. An old friend of mine actually showed that to me, but, like, and when I was an adult too, but I feel like I would really like, if I would, like, get into it, I feel like I would like it. Like, I loved Pokemon. I didn't watch it from beginning to end, of course, but, like, I loved it. And anytime when I was visiting my sister, I was watching it with my nephews, and, like, I dug every second of it. Like, it pulls me right in. So I feel like I should watch more. Plus, I love TV shows that I can, like, play but not, like, super focus on, you know what I mean? ADHD life. All right, so the next question: please talk about spiritual attacks and how you know/tell you are being attacked. First of all, you just know. Okay, like, you just know. Secondly, for me, it depends on the level of attack. Somebody has a voodoo doll of me, which I think is really cute, and, like, every time, for me, the attacks always, I can feel them in my body. I start to feel sick to my stomach. I start to get really energetically drained. I start to get really tired. My vibration shifts a little bit. I might go into a lower frequency, which is the same kind of, it's stronger when it's a spiritual attack and someone's, like, sending me baneful magic. But when it's evil eye, I just get really energetically drained. I'm really tired. My frequency shifts a little bit. I don't feel like myself. I have weird thoughts that aren't my own, etc. But you can always tell. Like, if you feel like you're being attacked, you probably are. Most of the time, you'll know when you're being attacked because you feel it, and B, your spiritual team is showing you, but you're not paying close enough attention. So, I hope that answers your question. How to understand downloads and to tap into mediumship. So, how to understand downloads, I personally always recommend, I've been recommending this since, like, the dawn of time, if you will. Write down all the things you hear. Whatever you receive, write it in, whether it's, like, a traditional, like, I'm sure you guys have seen this. I think I have it right here. Meep. I don't know why I just made that noise. I do. I haven't used this in a while. But whether it's in this or it's in your phone, just write it. Okay, like, I literally track all of my downloads because either they're going to make sense now or they're going to make sense later, or they're for the collective. So that's one way to start, like, truly understanding it. I feel like that's your first step, to be honest, because, like, once you start to track it, you're going to start to understand it more. All right. What else I don't even know what else you asked. I'm sorry. Oh, tap into mediumship. I don't really have a lot of knowledge on that because, as I said already in this video, I tend to run away from my ability when it comes to connecting with spirits. It scares me. What are some important lessons that I have learned during my healing journey? Balance is the key to happiness. Overthinking does nothing but disrupt your peace. life is too short. Patience is key. And there's, like, loving yourself is more important than anything else. Like, honestly, I think the biggest lesson I learned is love isn't everything. Like, yes, it's a great thing to have in your life, but at the end of the day, there is so much more important things to life than having a romantic relationship. I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my life. Because, like I said, in my early 20s, I was the type of person that would be really obsessed with love, really obsessed with relationships. I was very promiscuous because of that factor, but it's because I was looking for the love that I didn't have in myself in other people. So I think the biggest is self-love is key. And, like, repeating cycles, people show you who they are in the beginning. That's another big one, because I was the type of person that would take someone back time and time and time again, because one, I have a big heart, and two, I give unconditional love to people, but unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance. So that was a big lesson too, is not repeating cycles. What made you become a tarot reader? BTW, I love your content. I think I explained this one already, but the breakup that I experienced and the big changes that were going on in my life, like, it was also the pandemic, which was scary. So, like, not only did I experience a heartbreak, but, like, I was also going through a huge world transformation. Like, the world was really changing then, and it was scary, man. It was scary. Like, we lived through history, y'all. Okay, so you're really, really confused on if me getting in this relationship will be a good fit for me. See, I'm sorry, baby, I can't answer that question. That's one of those things that if you really want an answer to it, you would have to either purchase a reading from me or go to another person. But what I will tell you is, if you're confused, there's probably a reason for that. And the best way to remove confusion is to ground your energy and remind yourself that the answers will always come to you, okay? Favorite interaction with a spirit or Greek goddess like Hecate or Aphrodite? I feel like that's too personal to share. The only thing I feel safe enough to tell you, and she's allowing me to tell you, is she guided me to a poetry book. It's called Aphrodite Made Me Do It. That's like, what's the best advice you've ever received? My father, when I was really young, I had, okay, so one of the other things that I worked through with my shadow, I had rage issues. Like, I tell you guys, like, I had some massive anger problems when I was younger. And one of the things my father taught me at a very young age was you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, which is an old saying, but if it weren't for him teaching me that, I don't think I would have been able to overcome the anger part. Like, it didn't get better after he taught me that, of course, because I was young and stupid and had, like, pent up rage inside of me. But I would always have that in the back of my mind, reminding me that, like, yo, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And the other one, my mom, she used to tell me that you meet people where they are at. And she was right. Like, ultimately, people are people, and you can't control them to be anything other than who they are. So those were two of the biggest, and of course they came from my parents, those were two of the biggest lessons that I still take to this day. Yeah. I'm sure there's more, like, there's a lot. I've interacted with a lot of really wise people. So, like, a lot of people, actually, that same friend who helped push me towards content and, like, posting more frequently, he's still one of my closest friends. He also kind of helped me really break free from an entitlement process where I, like, because I wouldn't really recognize it. And I think a lot of people get into this energy where most of the time you focus on yourself and the life that you have and, like, the little bubble that you live in, which is really normal. Like, we're humans, we all do that, right? But one day he kind of just looked at me and was like, you know, though, like, sometimes you say some shit that's a little bit entitled. And I'm like, God damn, dude, I think you might be right. Like, I started to soul search from that moment because I'm very, like, an inward type of person. And that's when I recognized, like, I tend to be a little bit entitled. I tend to expect that things are going to happen for me because they should. I'm not like that now, but, like, there was a part of me that would get into that mindset. And it was very ego-based of me to do, but those are probably the best 3 pieces of advice I've ever received. Not to be entitled. You meet people where they're at, and you catch more flies with honey. My favorite mantra. Probably I don't chase, I attract. What belongs to me will simply find me. Because I use that regularly. Yeah, I'd say that's probably my favorite. How do you communicate with spirit, and what do you consider as a spirit? I consider a spirit any type of energy, really. Like, I think energies are no different than spirit. I think that spirit can be people that have passed on in this lifetime or other lifetimes that just didn't reincarnate. I think spirits can be animals. I think spirits can be higher selves. I think there's so much more to it than we naturally realize. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much how. How do you prep for divination readings? I cleanse my space and light a candle. Simple protection spell. Can you post more about spell work we can do? So I do have some spell work on my Patreon. The downside to the spiritual warfare I am attacked with on a regular basis means that I can't share as much of the knowledge that I have with you guys as I would like to. Because when I used to, I was attacked way more frequently and it actually would impact me. So one of the things, this is a big lesson. Somebody asked me that question, like, what was a big lesson I learned? Not sharing everything. It was a really big one. So when it comes to protection work, I personally believe you need to do the knowledge yourself in order to protect yourself properly. I personally think that if you share too much information, it's almost like you give the enemy the answers they need, right? Which literally was what I was doing in the past. And I kept wondering why my energy would be so low, why I would be so drained all the time. It was because my protection work was literally being combated immediately because the people had everything they needed to know to do that. So, unfortunately, I can't give you like what I would personally do, but a simple protection spell is a black candle. It's really that easy. Set the intention, ask for protection. And the rest of it, I would recommend doing your research on proper herbs, proper oils, that type of stuff, what days, etc. And as I just said, like from the earlier part there, I can't really post a lot about spell work anymore because of the attacks that I would receive from it. Knowing when it's intuition versus a trauma response and anxiety. It's a really hard one. What I will say is intuition is in your body, your anxiety and ego live in your mind, which is where trauma is, okay? It's in your mind. So a lot of the time when your intuition's telling you something, you're gonna feel it, like in here, like your body will lose, but like sometimes it'll get really tense, sometimes you'll feel sick. Okay, how to know if I am connected to my spirit guides, Lilith or Aphrodite? That's a good question. So each energy is going to appear differently. So like for example, Lilith is very gentle. So like her energy is going to be very gentle, whereas like Aphrodite's a little bit more aggressive. And like I can't speak to your personal spirit guides, but like my personal spirit guides come in a certain energy as well. So like recognizing the difference between the energies that you're connecting with is a good way to start understanding which one's which. They'll also tell you, like if you just ask, like if you just simply say like who is who, they'll give you the answer. Okay, this is 2 questions. So 1 of 2. Do you feel the spiritual journeys are solo/singular, that no one person can teach you the way? Yes. I personally believe they are completely solo. I believe a big part of your spiritual journey is learning how to be by yourself. I feel like a big part of your spiritual journey is going on your own. It's standing on your own 2 feet, sometimes for the first time ever. All right. You're lost since the death of your mother and you're pushing your boyfriend away. Oh, well, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss. Secondly, grief is a really, really rocky thing, my love. Journaling more might help you. Reminding your boyfriend that it's not about him and it's about your grief might help you. And just feeling your feelings. That's literally my best advice. I wish I had more to give you, but I really don't. Like telling your partner that it's not personal and like just to be a little bit more patient with you. Starting to connect more like with yourself might be beneficial. And even like talking, if your partner's open to it, like talking to him about it might actually help. I hope that helps. I don't really have a whole lot of answers to that because that's something you have to kind of navigate on your own accord. But journaling is going to really help you. Your question is too long. Can I message you privately? You can, but I can't guarantee I'm going to be answering it. All right. So like, it depends on what your question is. I would recommend emailing it though, because I don't check my DMs. Okay. However, If it's a personal question, I'm not going to answer. But if it's a spiritual question in nature, then yes, you can DM it to me. When it comes to healing from your last relationship, what spiritual tool helped you the most? That's a good question. I don't know. I would say probably my tarot, because I did gravitate, like I said in this Q&A already, like I did read a lot on myself in the beginning, and a lot of it was like about my personal growth and like the connection and like the healing I needed. It wasn't my last relationship, because like ultimately I didn't have as much pain from that last relationship, but like my most heartbreaking relationship, I would say probably the tarot, as well as just like journaling. Honestly, y'all, it was one of the things that helped me the most in my healing. Can you go a little deeper about I literally just did a tarot reading to that. So if you haven't already seen it, then you might want to go look at it. But yeah, you're talking about the song that, I'm Not Pretty or whatever. And what's crazy is like, so I said I screenshot all of these, right? So I started and I deleted a couple of them already, but like literally the screenshots I took of that song are there. Like, it's kind of funny. Funny haha, if you will. Okay, where are we? So yeah, I would definitely just go look at I think it was the last reading I did. It's been stuck in your head for 2 days, you're obsessed. That's pretty much what happened to me too. So what got you started doing tarot? Who, spirit guide, angel, deity spoke? The first angel that came to me was Archangel Michael. The first deity that came to me was Bridget. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the first spirit guide to come to me was my friend who passed away, and my grandmother, and then my grandfather. And I already kind of explained what got me into reading tarot. It was the grief and not really understanding what was happening. All right. What is your favorite tarot card? Ooh, good question. Honestly, I would say I'm torn between the Star card and Strength. Depends on the imagery. It honestly depends on the deck that I'm using. So like certain decks, I like certain cards more than others. So I guess in the long answer, I don't really have a particular one favorite card, because each deck has a different one. Yeah. Like the Tattoo Tarot, my favorite card in that one is the Star card. Whereas like in the deck that I pulled out already today, like this one here, I can't remember. I think it's called Light Seers. This one, I really like the Strength card. Although I like the Four of Wands in this one too. And the Empress. I don't know. It's hard. That's a hard question. I don't have the answer to that. New question. I'm just kidding. I think the answer for that one is each deck has a different favorite. It's just that simple. I do like the High Priestess though in most decks, because like I like what the High Priestess stands for. So I don't know. That one's a hard one. That one made my brain like short circuit a little bit. But that's all of the questions. I hope I answered them all to your guys' liking. And maybe I'll do this again sometime.